Hello, viewers, and welcome to yet another commentated match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest played over Octagon. Today's featured game is going to be having two players, namely Grendel piloting Captain Cato Sicarius, the Space Marines Warlord, and he's going to be playing against Diskor, who's running Old One-Eye with the chosen Synapse unit Savage Warrior Prime. Due to popular demand, this is going to be the very first time I'm actually joined by a co-commentator. So Dan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, hi Mitch. So yeah, looks like we're actually doing this thing. My name's Diazra or Dan, and yeah, after we had that much chemistry the last time, I thought I'd just come by and hug some of that fame that you seem to gather.
Definitely. Well, it's a union between two different countries here, the United States and Germany, so hopefully it'll be good. But in taking a look at our table here, we've got the initiative token in the hands of our Space Marines player, and in assessing our planet layout, looks like planet number 1 is Barless, which is the random card discard planet. Planet 2 is Karnath, which triggers the ability of any other planet. Planet 3 is Planum, which moves units. Planet 4 is going to be Atrox Prime, which deals damage. Planet number 5 is going to be Yvarn, which puts units into play. We see a Blood Angels veterans being deployed to the first planet, and I suppose just in taking a look at these players' hands, a Ripper Swarm enters play. What are just some initial thoughts, Dan, in regard to what we might expect from these players, from these decks?
Well, so we get two Tyranid warriors on Old One-Eye's hand, so that's a very strong, very vanilla unit. We only get some flavor text, but we get two command icons, we got two attack, four health, and especially paired with that regeneration we have on Discor's hand might be really strong. Although regeneration combined with the lurking Harmagon, the pod unit for Old One Eye becomes a real beast. He's 3/3, he regenerates. That will be exciting to see. And we got Grendel with some real old school SM staples on his hand. We got one of the command units, Sicarius Chosen. We get an eager recruit for some really, really nice ambush. We get another new unit, Ambush Veteran Barbarous. Not that good against all regular opponents, but really good following his Death Watch fate and fighting aliens and everything that's really weird and yeah, really in this case really behemouthy. We got a Crushing Bro. We got Primal Howl. He doesn't have to be afraid to actually go against Old One Eye. He'll have three additional cards, and I'm really excited to see what will happen with the Crushing Blow.
Definitely a lot of fantastic tricks to see from that Space Marine. Looks like Grendel is finally back from a little bit of an AFK, and while we were bogged down in discussion, we've seen a Ripper Swarm played out to planet number 4, and just like you happen to mention with Veteran Barbarous here, it's actually pretty fortunate that Cato's going up against a Xenos playing opponent, just because otherwise that ability would be just entirely useless. But it looks like our Space Marine player puts out a Void Pirate to planet number 4, which doesn't quite allow him to best that Ripper Swarm in regard to command, but at the very least he does tie even, and then it's once again our Tyranid player's opportunity to deploy.
Yeah, it actually surprises me that he didn't go for the Sicarius Chosen to draw out maybe a shield or even outright kill that Ripper Swarm, but instead blocks command with the Void Pirate.
Sure. I suppose either way, it'd be the Sicarius is chosen, potentially matching for command or besting it if the Tyranid player does let it die. We see Volatile Pyrovore touch down on planet number 2, and just in assessing our planets, once again, it looks like the earliest any player is going to be able to win is going to be planet number 4, and now we see that Sicarius is chosen touchdown on planet number 3, so Ripper Swarm is the target over at planet number 4, and what exactly does does our Tyranid player have? The only shield token they had was that regeneration, and whether they wanted to let it die or not, the Ripper Swarm is successfully destroyed. So, looks like a pretty decent early game economy here for our Space Marine, and what exactly could our Tyranid try to do to, prevent this from costing him this early game economic lead?
Well, first of all, he's going aggressive onto one. He had 3 resources left. He went for that Lurking Hormagaunt, and I'm pretty sure he'll actually pair it up with Regeneration for 3. And seeing Savage Warrior Prime, he might skip the first turn economic advantage to actually deal out some damage and pave the way for solid second turn economy.
Sure, and it looks as though at this point, George has indeed passed. Our Tyranid player puts out that regeneration, just like you mentioned, it would be perfect on the Lurking Hormagaunt. It's now a 3/3 that can strip off a couple points of damage. It can reassign some of that damage to Old One Eye. So it's looking like it's entirely possible that our Tyranid player could potentially take the first planet, or at least force our Space Marine player to expend some of these incredible events he has in his hand. That Eager Recruit is going to be incredibly nasty. But in regard to where these players are sending their warlords, what are your thoughts?
We're looking at a pretty light command or planet icon layout. We don't have a win until planet 4, so both of them could actually let go of the first planet without having that much of a disadvantage. We have the discard 1 card effects on Barless, which means that although it will hurt, it won't be that damaging. So we could see both Old One Eye and Cato actually go into other planets to establish more command dominance. We have Karnath on 2, which is very attractive because they can either trigger the Planum effects or do some HQ damage with Aatrox Prime. I'd say that Cato actually risks it and goes to 2, although on the other hand the Pyro War could hurt if Cato, and characteristically the Tyranids are kind of low on shields, so Cato might try to strike for those 2 and put in a crushing blow just to shield with the Howl afterwards and secure Karnath.
Well, I think it's entirely possible. I guess our Tyranid player only happens to have 2 cards in hand. Neither player has any resources going into this phase. So there's definitely going to be a lot of economy coming in for our Space Marine to start funding some of his events. Looks like we've revealed our dials. Cato is going to end up going to planet number 1. Bit of a risky proposition considering how hard that Hormagaunt can swing, considering how much damage could be reassigned to Old One Eye, who will have an opportunity to exhaust. Savage Warrior Prime goes to planet number 2, and Old One Eye ends up going to planet number 4. So in regard to command, it looks like it's 2 planets apiece. George Grendel is going to get 3 cards, 1 resource, relative to the Tyranids, 2 cards, 2 resources. And I suppose, what exactly are our players seeing here?
We have an Indomitable on Cato's hand combined with that 1 resource he actually got that gives him the chance to avoid 3 damage from the Lurking Hormagaunt. Another thing he still has on his hand is the Eager Recruit, so with that 1 resource he could either go defensive or offensive, pretty much seeing how that fight on 1 goes. I don't think he'll try to get the Recruit in on 4, because that would just be overdoing it.
Right.
He will be able to trigger Karnath if Old One Eye will be able to trigger Karnath if nothing bad happens, and I don't really see Cato preventing that. So it all really relies on how the fight on 1 is going. We don't see anything No, we don't see anything relevant for this fight on Diskor's hand. He got a ferocious strength, which is very nice, but shines only if your Synapse or Warlord unit is present.
Right. Well, I suppose something I think is interesting here is it looks like combat has indeed begun. We've got our Blood Angels veterans taking a swing for 3, and then really all our Tyranid player happens to have is just that one ferocious strength, which is only one shield icon. It's definitely a little bit more valuable, I think, played as an event. I would not want to use it as shields. And let's see how much. Okay, so Old One Eye ended up taking a couple points of that damage here, but definitely some interesting battle abilities potentially being stacked. Old One Eye is going to all but certainly win at Aatrox Prime, and then Karnath could relocate a unit further down the line, like this Volatile Pyrovore, if he feels appropriate, or he could just absolutely pummel Cato's HQ, firing Aatrox Prime twice. And if that Blood Angels veterans shows up there exhausted, that could be very handy and potentially scoring a kill on that unit. So I'm very curious to see how this all ends up resolved. That Primal Howl is discarded as shields, and now let's see if Cato actually manages to kill this Lurking Hormigaunt here.
It would be quite hard for him to actually kill it, seeing as Old One Eye still can take that damage, seeing as how if he splits the damage 1-1 between Old One Eye and the Hormigaunt, he can just use that regeneration and heal all of that damage, get into the next fight, and start exactly where the last one began. But in the end, seeing the cards we see, there won't really be much for him to do. We see the Hormigaunt at 2 HP, so now it's interesting to see if Grendel actually goes for the crushing blow. He doesn't, and therefore Diskor can actually trigger the regeneration.
Right.
Having the initiative, I think the crushing blow would have gone first before the Lurking Hormigaunt actually could trigger the regeneration, but he opted not to do it because I think he's quite sure of the win.
Sure, and I guess with Crushing Blow, it's just one unpreventable damage to that unit. Does that work around that reassignment of damage from the Hormigaunt?
That is a really good question.
Yeah.
Although it's unpreventable, I don't think the reallocation actually counts as preventing it, right?
Right. So I think that probably just circumvents effects like the Indomitable here, but it looks like Barlas ends up successfully triggered. We do see that Lurking Hormigaunt retreat. Tyranid Warrior happens to be the unit randomly discarded from our Tyranid player's hand, so it's now 2 resources, 3 cards for Diskor, relative to 1 resource and 6 cards for Cato. Unfortunately, the Blood Angels veterans here are sitting in Cato's HQ entirely ready, and that means a double trigger of Aatrox Prime is going to be dealing them no damage whatsoever. So if it were me, I'd have been curious to kind of do the math, take a little bit longer in my turn to figure out whether or not that Lurking Hormigaunt could have incurred a little bit of damage. Old One Eye could have taken a little bit of damage. We actually see Karnath trigger. That's a very interesting choice. We end up seeing that Ravenous Haruspex put into play at our Tyranid player's HQ, so a 3/5 that destroys army units gains resource tokens equal to printed cost. And very curiously, George ends up putting into play a Talarn Raiders, so 1 resource to 5. Color me surprised to see that kind of play, and our Tyranid player definitely came out ahead on that one. I suppose Old One Eye is going to be fighting a battle here alone at Aatrox Prime. Quite conveniently, he's got 3 points of damage. It's going to round up to having 2 points of damage healed off of him as soon as he obliterates this Void Pirate here. And that Talarn Raiders is going to be practically killed by Aatrox Prime if he doesn't shoot Sicarius as chosen. So just taking a look at our players' hands, taking a look at what resources, cards they have available to them, what would be your strategy for either player moving ahead?
Grendel could actually go for the bloody. We're looking at 2 cards in in Discor's hand. And yeah, there we see the eager recruit. Like I said, we're looking at 2 cards in Discor's hand, and that means that it's quite unlikely for him to have high shields. So what he's doing now is he's dealing 2 damage to him, and it gets shielded. But just imagine the shield not coming in.
Right.
We would have seen a crushing blow. It would have gone up to 6 damage on Alt One Eye, and he would have been bloodied.
Right, and much to George's frustration, he doesn't have a single resource to fund Indomitable, so now our Tyranid player has to decide he is going to stay, so he's being a little bit ballsy here. If he did not, rather, let's say if George happened to have a 2 shield card in his hand, that could have easily resulted in Old One Eye being bloodied, so that eager recruit retreats, and of course, Aatrox Prime is going to fire into the HQ, and the eager recruit is immediately killed. So Cato takes a damage, the Tallarn Raiders take a damage, and Old One Eye ended up readying, stripping off a bunch of that damage, and surviving to see another day. So that copy of Ferocious Strength is gone. We're about to see our HQ phase. It looks like both players are fairly evenly matched. I guess our Tyranid player has much more daunting units filling his HQ. So what might you do from the perspective of the Space Marine player just to make sure that that Tyranid player can't keep pushing the next 3 planets and ultimately win the game?
So, with the Space Marine player, we have 2 crushing blows now. We get veteran Barbarous still waiting to get in there and dish out some ambush damage. We have Cato's Stronghold, which right now, although having a nice effect, might not be the coolest play for him. And
Right.
we have a Void Pirate. So, after we saw him being very aggressive first turn, that recruit came in there and was hoping for no shields to be on Old One Eye's hand. So I think he might continue that. I think he might try to actually get 4 resources to in command, and I'm pretty sure he'll try to get Old One Eye bloody. So we'll more than likely see that veteran commit to a planet where Old One Eye is trying to trigger one of the effects, and just start out with the 2 damage, attack for 2, and continue with 2 crushing blows, which would bring us up to 6 damage.
Well, he's going to have to do something because we just saw, at planet number 1, we've now got a regeneration attached to that volatile pyrovore. We ended up seeing a ravenous Haruspex, copy number 2, played out to planet number 2, and if that manages to devour that Sicarius is chosen, despite our Tyranid player only having 1 single card remaining in hand, that could just potentially allow his, resource token count to get completely out of control. In assessing just high card volume planets, we aren't seeing any with value more than 1, so our Tyranid player doesn't have any obvious targets to send Old One Eye to in that sense, but our Space Marine player has a hand chock so full of fantastic events. He's still got 3 resources, he's got 5 cards, but apart from this Void Pirate put out to planet number 3, he doesn't have any really economically savvy units to fill the board with. That veteran brother Barbarous is going to be a very expensive opportunity to maybe bloody Old One Eye, so maybe it'll pay off, but he's got 2 command icons, but at what cost? It's going to take almost everything that George has in a resource sense, and it seems like unless Cato can start keep drawing cards, keep generating resources, things are starting to look all the way bad for our Space Marine player.
It looks really bad for him. By now, I think that he aims to go full on Warlord Assassination, because, like you say, we have 2 Ravenous Haruspecs in play now. That's 10 resources worth of kick-ass annihilate you units. One of these guys alone is pretty scary, but having 2 of them in play, that can really ruin your day. And so yeah, I think he might try to pressure Planet 1 just to get on the same planet as Old One Eye, have his units, get him exhausted, or at least take a few hits for him to actually open up the chance for veteran Barbas to get in. And if he goes on one, although he won't win the command there, if Old Y commits on one, we have Planet 3 open, Aatrox Prime with the Void Pirate, and we'll see one resource come into him, and that pretty much means veteran Barbers being ready to kick some ass.
Well, looks like we see both warlords actually commit to planet number 3, so they're gonna just have their drawn-out big brawl at that planet, and that's probably one of the better outcomes, I guess, for Cato being at the same planet as Old One Eye, just because he'll have an opportunity to attack. Veteran Barbarous will, be able to ambush in, potentially get an opportunity to attack. We've got those crushing blows. Our Tyranid player, though, I mean, he's trying to set himself up on his win condition planet here. I'm just dead curious to see if it's going to be enough. Like, can Cato manage to come back? We see a third copy of Crushing Blow for George. He drew 2 cards, 1 resource. Our Tyranid only won 1 card and 1 resource. Our Tyranid happened to get a copy of the Great Scything Talons, which isn't going to be nearly as good if Old One Eye ends up being bloodied. We've got combats that are going to occur at planet number 1, planet number 2, and planet number 3, and much to the frustration of George, I'm sure, this Ravenous Haruspex is going to be able to relocate itself via Planum to Aatrox Prime. So I guess, what are you thinking we could expect during this combat phase?
So I don't think that anything will happen on the Kurnath. I'm pretty sure it'll just go to Old One Eye, and he's triggering Planum,
Right.
moving his Pyro War onto Planet 3, so he has a second ready big unit over there now. It's 3/3 with regeneration. That alone must really, really scare Cato.
Sure.
We got the battle on Planet 2, which doesn't look so good for our Space Marines either. So Ravenous Haruspex and Savage Warrior Prime. I guess that he tries to actually get both of them ready before he triggers the planet. So I'd guess that he takes the 2 damage, therefore attacking with the Savage Warrior Prime first, and attacking with the Ravenous Haruspex later, so he can ready them both and then move one of the units ready to another planet, which he doesn't, apparently.
Well, looks like that Ravenous Haruspex is going to be the opening attack. I personally would have expected the Savage Warrior Prime to maybe wound it to draw out an Indomitable or something like that, but George has 4 resources. It's the exact number he needs to play Veteran Barbarous. So are we going to see one of his... wow, okay. Looks like the Sicarius is chosen is just killed outright, and that's going to be an incredible 3 resources for our Tyranid player. So that doesn't bode tremendously well. I mean, that alone is going to be enough to put in a copy of the Tyranid Warrior into play, so another 2 command icon units, and our Tyranid looks very well set up for his victory condition. He already happened to win a grand total of 1 red and 1 blue icon. He'll be able to win through blue icons here, and unless we see an action from our Space Marine, that's going to be combat at planet number 2. Looks like the Tyranid indicates he's done with his actions, and what, if anything, can we see from George?
Right now, not that much. We'll have Savage Warrior Prime actually moving to Planet 5 to also trigger that one. Always nice. I think that was one of the first things that was mentioned with the Savage Warrior Prime, that you can just trigger multiple planet abilities. And let's be honest, he doesn't really need it for the fight on Aatrox Prime. He's looking really good over there.
Right.
There's not that much that Cato will actually be able to do. Although looking at his hand, like you've mentioned, we got the 3 crushing blows, we got the veteran. We also have an Indomitable, which after playing veteran Barbarous, we won't be able to actually see unless he manages to kill a unit, which with an exhausted Void Pirate isn't really that likely, I think. Question is, does he risk it? Does he go all in? Does he actually use his Cato? Or will he try to move Cato away and get the veteran in after the other guys keep swinging? Upside to that, of course, is that once Old One Eye is exhausted because he's cleaning up Void Pirates or Talaran Raiders, he will have a far easier time to actually sweep in with veteran Barbarous and deal some damage. Then again, we're seeing a 3 shields on diskor, so he'll be able to at least take some of that damage away. But let's have a look. We get the veteran bringing him to 2 HP left. We got the 3 crushing blows, so he'll have to actually shield. No? If he puts in the veteran and manages to punch with it, Old One Eye should be bloody.
Right. I mean, just of critical importance here is that crushing blow is any source of damage from a Space Marine unit. It doesn't need to be from an attack. So Old One Eye is looking to get very, very hurt. But I guess my question, rhetorical or not, is just, is there anything that Cato can try to do at this point to swing the battle in his favor? If Cato swings, maybe he ends up bloodying Old One Eye, but then he puts himself in just a terrible position to take a tremendous amount of damage, either directly to Cato or just have any of these Tyranid units ready and then proceed to run over his remaining units. I mean, each of these units that dies, whether or not Old One Eye gets bloodied, these ravenous Haruspecs, I guess we've only got one at the planet, but that'll gain additional resources. This Savage Warrior Prime, I guess before this game, I always considered myself a stalking lictor kind of guy, but Savage Warrior Prime is just totally putting in work, going to... Oh, Iridial, I suppose, my mistake. I thought that Savage Warrior Prime went to Yavvarn, so our new 5th planet ended up being the healing planet, and therefore I wonder if we'll see Old One Eye healed. I would imagine it's going to be too little too late at that point, and I was fully expecting Yavvarn to end up just being another opportunity to dump a Tyranid into play. It seems like this elite heavy-ish Tyranid deck is just such a nice answer to this ultra-low unit cost typical Space Marine deck.
Absolutely, and looking at the situation right now, it would even make sense for Old One Eye to just skip the first combat and just leave that planet, because even sitting at HQ, he'll be able to soak the damage that goes onto Lurking Hormagaunt. He has the Savage Warrior Prime on Planet 5, so he can easily, even if he takes up to 5 damage, he can easily just remove it all. That's actually quite a nice position for him. And like you said, having that Haruspex and the Pyrovore and the Hormagaunt, 2 of them with regeneration on that planet, is just worth that much. On the other hand, Cato is not really... Nope, he's not really in risk of getting bloodied, even if he exhausts. He is at 5 HP left, and that Pyrovore striking would just mean 4 damage of him on him, and Old One Eye can add 2 to that. So with just 1 simple shield card, and even without any resource to play it, Indomitable is still one shield card. He can actually use him.
Right. I guess just to George's chagrin, he must be really just kind of frustrated that, of course, there's no Fury of Sicarius, and all the crushing blows in the world aren't going to be able to potentially take down one of these high HP Tyranid units when you can just wound them and they can regenerate that away. And even if he did happen to have a Fury of Sicarius, it seems like he's really kind of finding himself between a rock and a hard place, just in regard to how on earth can he try to scrape together enough resources to put Veteran Barbarous into play, in addition to whatever other events he could potentially have. So our players are taking a moment to look up a rules question, and let's just see how this battle pans out.
I think he might go for the hit and run. I mean, even staying in, just hitting Alt One Eye, like you said, Aatrox Prime would be the win condition if diskor gets Platinum, but if he manages to just hit and run from that planet, bloody Alt One Eye, and then relocate over to Platinum for the next phase, he might be able to get a few hits on the Warlord and end it with an assassination. I don't think that there's economy or rather unit count wise that there's a lot of other ways he could actually win that game, because I'm looking at it and it's two ravenous Haruspecs, one volatile Pyro War, lurking Harmagant, two regeneration in play, and you get the Warlord that is not just running around sniping command from people, but a Synapse unit that is actually going to planets, triggering battle abilities, and hitting people for two.
Right. I just think that whether or not George ends up using a lot of these events just to score a bloodying, I think that ultimately it's likely not going to be enough. Our Tyranid player, I can only imagine, is really hoping to start drawing some pretty powerful units, or maybe some effects like Dark Cunning, just because he's going to have a lot more resources than he already has in the very near future, and not a whole lot to do with those. All right, so it looks like George is done looking up his rules question, and we see combat erupt with the volatile Pyrovore take a swing at Captain Cato Sicarius, and that's going to be 3 points of damage in total. The initiative token, of course, is in hands of the Tyranid. Tyranid player indicates no actions, and now what exactly are we going to see from our Space Marine?
He pretty much has, well, he has three things he can do. We get the Void Pirate that might just attack for 0 to stall the attack, but that wouldn't get him anything, because One Eye would still be able to hit Sicarius. He can get the hell out of dodge just to at least take 2 of his HP back home, which will then pretty soon turn into 1 HP. Or he can put in Veteran Barbers. There he is.
All right. Well, I can only imagine that Old One Eye is going to be. Well, I suppose it has to target an army unit. My mistake. So that Lurking Hormigaunt is going to end up taking 2 points of damage, and that's going to be a fantastic opportunity. Looks like our Tyranid player is taken entirely by surprise by seeing this somewhat seldom played Warlord. So that's going to be 2 points of damage to the Lurking Hormigaunt. It's Crushing Blow eligible. We could potentially see up to 5 points of damage, all of which are reassignable to Old One Eye. And now I can only imagine that the specific rule George was looking up was the same quandary that you and I had, is damage that cannot be prevented, unable to be reassigned. And I can only imagine that it can indeed be reassigned. But let's see here. We see 1 Crushing Blow. And what else are we going to see? Are we going to see 2 additional copies of Crushing Blow? I suppose they all have to be played one at a time. Interestingly, our Tyranid player, was that regeneration completely ready?
That regeneration should have been ready, because he didn't use it before. With him having the initiative, he should have been the one able to actually use that regeneration before the Crushing Blows reaction triggers. But
Well,
looks
I guess regeneration is just an action itself, but I'm kind of surprised we didn't see any of that damage reassigned to Old One Eye, in a sense. But Very interesting series of events here. We end up seeing Captain Cato take a swing at Old One-Eye, and now our Tyranid player has to be trying to figure out, does he want to use that great Scything Talons? At the present moment, looks like Cato's threatening for 2. He's still got those 2 crushing blows, which are unknown to the opposition. Veteran Barbarous himself will be attacking for 2, so that could be a grand total of 6 points of damage, which is going to be enough to bloody Old One-Eye.
And he takes him.
Right, and
he
that's
takes
1.
the 2 damage, and we see the 2 crushing blows.
So
sorry for interrupting you, man.
Not
but
a
I
problem.
was just like, wow. All right, so One Eye is actually bloodied.
Right, and veteran brother Barbarous is ready. He's able to attack. There's a little bit of daunting opposition remaining. Color me quite surprised that those Hormagaunts ended up being destroyed. It seems like somewhere in there could have potentially been some damage reassignment or something, just to make sure that regeneration ended up triggered. But definitely our Tyranid player was taken by surprise by veteran Barbarous gracing the table with his presence. I'm sure he was much more expecting something along the lines of Drop Pod Assault or the Fury of Sicarius, but now I wonder if our Tyranid player is going to be able to come back and potentially win this one. Our Space Marine doesn't have a glut of events in his hand, but this is a lot of hit points to chew through. That volatile Pyrovore is going to punish whatever ends up killing it, but now things definitely just got much more interesting. So, I suppose Veteran Barbarous is going to be able to attack, and how do you imagine that this battle is going to play out?
This changes a lot. I didn't actually expect the Hormagant to die. I thought he would go for a One Eye, but like you said, the 2 damage ability actually has to target an army unit. So of course that didn't go onto Old One Eye, and he just took the damage. He didn't reassign it to, or at least reassign half of it to his Warlord, and that opened him up for the crushing blow. And I guess the shield on Old One Eye didn't come because, yeah, you saw 1 crushing blow. He might have a second, but what are the chances of the Space Marine actually having all 3 crushing blows on hand? Well,
Right.
actually, guess the chances were pretty good. He got that 1 resource from killing the Hormagant, so now his Indomitable is free again. He can shield or rather prevent the damage from one of the 2 units. His Blood Angel veterans are still in play, but unfortunately will be killed by hits of either the Pyrovore or the Haruspecs. We also have veteran Barbers still in play. We have the Talarn Raiders that still hit for 2. So right now it doesn't even look bad for the Space Marine. What do you think, Mitch?
I just think, that absolutely changes everything. All of a sudden, the Tyranid, it looks like he was just able to completely swarm down the Space Marines, but now that all these units are standing here, all of them are ready, the Talarn Raiders only attack for 2, but they also have to absorb one of these attacks. We see that Ravenous Haruspecs take a swing at Cato. Both players opted not to retreat, and are we going to see that Indomitable, or is he simply going to allow Cato to be bloodied? So I guess there's just so much up in the air. I can only imagine that things are looking a little bit more favorable for our Space Marine now, and I think this game just stood to potentially get quite a bit longer, because the Indomitable does grace the table, it's been put into play, and now how much damage can our Tyranid do, and what are these players going to draw? I think so much of it is going to come down to what kind of cards do they end up drawing to try to finish the game here.
That is so amazing. We see the Talarn Raiders hitting, well, not hitting anything.
Right.
Okay, so he's not leaving with Cato, which means that he will definitely be bloodied after the Pyrovore swings for him, which I assume it'll do. We see the 3 shield go out to protect the Haruspecs, and although a lot of hope might have come back to Cato Sicarius, right now it is only getting bleak again. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what's happening, because one thing's sure, this is pretty exciting.
Well, I mean, it's not too often I see both warlords bloodied, especially in a single battle. But Captain Cato Sicarius is banished from the planet. Veteran Barbarous, he's not veteran brother. He takes a swing at that ravenous Haruspex, and all of a sudden that's not going to be enough to kill it. And of course, now that Cato is gone, any of these Tyranid units that happen to be killed are not going to result in additional resources for our Space Marine. So our Space Marine doesn't have much in respect to just useful things that he can try to replenish his forces with. But I just think so much of this is going to come down to, wow, all right. So we end up seeing our Space Marine player retreat, and that means that the Tyranid player ends up winning Aatrox Prime and taking a shot into the Space Marine player's HQ. I think if it were me, I'd have probably stayed at that planet and tried to kill off as much as I could, but this Ravenous Haruspex was going to continually generate resources, limit once per phase, but hopefully it could have hit something valuable, unless this a Haruspex. No, okay, so the Planum shift was the Savage Warrior Prime. I was just making sure that that limit once per phase was intact based on if it had potentially moved from planet to planet. But wow, I mean, the combat is done. Now the Savage Warrior Prime is going to be able to strip 4 points of damage off of that Haruspex. So good on you, Diskor, for not going to Yavvarn after all, because dim plays, my god. But I suppose what, if anything, could you expect our Space Marine to draw just to get himself out of this hole he's suddenly finding himself in?
At least 7 more crushing blows.
Right.
Well, I'd definitely like to. Well, we got a Telisarian Tempest Plate, which, although Cato might not want to stick around for too long, at least it'll add another damage to him. It'll bring up to Armor Bane damage, which means 3 Armor Bane from Cato. It would have been nice if he wasn't bloodied right now, because if you don't have to worry about the game ending because you just pretty much die, the blade can be applied a lot nicer. But I'm still really surprised about not at least the veterans staying at Aatrox to finish off that Haruspex. But it must really hurt to see these 4 damage just leave after he fought for them so hard. So we got some White Scars Bikers, we got a Tempest Blade, we got an Almighty 10th Company Scout, and we got Cato's Stronghold. That doesn't look like the magic hand that will be able to actually turn the game. But Old One Eye's at 1-6 now. He's also bloody. So, what do you think?
Our new 5th planet happens to be Ossus 4, so that allows stealing of resources. We end up seeing that copy of White Scars Biker put out to planet number 1, and I'm sure to our Tyranid players' delight, he ended up drawing yet another just daunting elite. It happened to be this Yumgarl Gene Stealer, so if he puts that out to Planum, that's going to be at least a 4-4 with 2 command icons, potentially attacking for 6, and since George was not fortunate enough to draw a copy of Indomitable, fortunately for him, the initiative token happens to be in his hands, but that Gene Stealer could potentially kill Cato and cost George the game in a single swing. We end up seeing the Gene Stealer put out to planet number 1, and now all our Tyranid player has to do is keep harvesting resources between both of these Haruspecs, hopefully draw some cool events going into our command phase, and then just fill the board with units to just wall off our Space Marines. So it looks like George throws out a laughing his ass off, and he is just kind of got 1 resource left. Does he want to put out the Tempest Blade or that 10th Company Scout? He could have fixed the Tempest Blade like you're saying to Barbarous, but what is a 3/3 unit that's granted Armor Bane going to be doing when it's It's going to be showing up exhausted. The Haruspex could kill it in a single swing. That's going to be his only shield card, and then that's 4 additional resources for our Tyranid player. So our Tyranids don't have fantastic events, but I'm just curious to see what George can do to salvage this one. I'm thinking he can't, but I'm sure he's not going to go down without a fight. So that 10th Company Scout graces the table. And where exactly does it go? Planet number 3. So where would you be sending warlords if you were our Tyranid to secure victory, or if you were Cato, just to try to dig yourself a little bit out of this pit you're in?
So Cato's at least relatively safe on Planum. He has initiative. He can just disappear on his initiative, and he might be hopeful to have One Eye commit to 2 maybe, preparing for his next initiative. Of course, One Eye, although bloodied, he can just lean back and see what's happening. He definitely won't go to 2, because that will just mean another battle ability triggered in case One Eye doesn't go there. And the battle on Aatrox Prime will be outside his initiative, so I don't think that he'll try to actually set up there. He might try to get a few resources, get a few cards, maybe Iridal to remove a damage from Cato, but right now it doesn't look like he has a lot of really lucrative, really nice places to go besides Planum and Aatrox Prime, at least card bonus, resource bonus wise, and they are really not a healthy environment for a bloodied Cato.
Right. I think, if Cato touches down on planet number 1, the Gene Stealer swings for 6 as soon as it has a chance. If, I can't imagine Cato would just retreat right away. That kind of eliminates the point of initiative, so that Tempest Blade could be discarded. That's still going to be 3 points of damage on Cato. He'd be 1 point of damage away from being killed. If we saw a battle at Aatrox Prime, if he doesn't draw shields, then that could very well be the game there. But this White Scars Bikers, seeing as how there's no more than this Talisarian Tempest Blade, it seems like that's either going to flounder ineffectually against these Tyranid elites. It's potentially going to be 3 resources for our Tyranid players, so it just seems like Cato's options start bad and they get just rotten very quickly. We even see a Toxic Venom Throat played out opposite that 10th Company Scout at planet number 3, so our Tyranid player is looking great in regard to command. Cato indicates he's actually going to go to planet number 1, so he is nicely going to drop off this retinue of soldiers with him, but he'd better hope to high hell that if he wins any cards this turn, he draws some solid gold. So Savage Warrior Prime goes to planet number 1, and Old One Eye is going to go to planet number 2. So that's going to mean that the Yumgarl Gene Stealer has a grand total of 6 attack and 6 hit points. There's no Fury of Sicarius to be seen to get rid of that Gene Stealer, to get rid of the Savage Warrior Prime. In regard to economy, what exactly are we going to see here?
We got 1 card and 1 resource for Grendel.
Right.
And we get a promotion, alright. So even that 1 resource, which might have been at least somewhat nice on a recruit or an indomitable or something like that, will not get any chance to actually pay for a good card. We got that Gene Stealer sitting around with 6 HP instead of 6 attack, because Savage Warrior Prime walked over there.
Sure. Well, it's both. I mean, this is just a horrifying unit. This, Cato's present at that planet until he leaves. It's swinging for 6, and as soon as as long as the Savage Warrior Prime there is, it's also got 6 hit points. So that is just horrifying.
All right, yeah, absolutely. I missed that. It's just like the Warlord groupies. It's not with your Warlord, but actually whoa. All right, yeah,
Sure.
no, sure, 6/6,
Right.
of course. Why not?
Well,
I mean,
Exactly, and I mean, if it wasn't looking bad enough, it's not useful this round, but Awakening Cavern was the one and only card, along with one resource that our Tyranid player won, and it looks like that Awakening Cavern would allow him during the subsequent turn to ready any of these nasty Tyranid elites, but it looks like George is actually saving himself the trouble, the pain, the hardship. He's actually called out GG, so it looks like he's forfeited the match, he's conceded, but congratulations to Diskor for winning. A huge congratulations to Old One Eye for just really putting all those Tyranid elites through their paces. So fantastic play on part of both of our players. And of course, thank you to Diskor and George for allowing me to record this. But I suppose any thoughts in regard to this match, Dan?
That was brutal. We got to see an old One-Eye Elite deck that actually worked. So what players have been trying with Chaos for quite a while, we did see here doing a lot of damage and spreading terror against one of the prime contenders of the last season. We have Cato Sicarius, winner of Worlds 2014, the Warlord, not the person behind it. But still, we have a solid deck. We have a deck that has proven to actually win competitions, and it got smashed by really, really big Tyranids. So that might be something that actually shakes up the meta in the future. We might be able to see some elite focused decks out of the Tyranids, and I think that's something people have been looking for and something people have wanted for quite a while.
Well, definitely. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic to see a little bit of a non-standard deck just absolutely getting some work in. It looks like the best of efforts from Captain Cato Sicarius were in the end insufficient to overcome the likes of the Tyranid swarm, so very well played to Diskor. Again, congratulations to him, but very well played by both of our players. So I suppose with that said, thank you so much for joining me today, Dan. For all you viewers out there, today more than ever, I'd very much appreciate your feedback and constructive criticism regarding this co-commentary style. I'd very much like to record more similar matches like this with Dan, so be sure to let me know what you think went well, what could be improved. But with that said, I'll just end this video by saying if you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel if you've not done so already. Or of course, if you are already subscribed, be sure to share this content, as the more viewers there are that stumble across videos like this one, they might enjoy these fantastic matches and excellent play, they might give Conquest a try, join our community, and of course, send the message to Fantasy Flight Games to continue to support this fantastic product. So at any point, feel free to get in touch with me through Twitter or on Facebook, and of course, if at any point you'd like to help me recover some of my file hosting and operating expenses, I'd be honored were you to donate $1 or $2 a month to me through Patreon. So with that said, thank you once again for watching, thank you to Dan for joining me today, and as always, be sure to check back soon for ever more Conquest LCG content to come.